Okay, hi everybody. Good morning. Day 3 of spring training at Coors Field, the Rockies. You have a new host today, so bear with me. Just a reminder to raise your hand if you have a question, and I will. I'll call on you. So we'll get started if someone wants to ask first question. We will start with Kevin Henry.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
Kevin, I'm well. Good morning.
Curious your thoughts on what we're seeing in the news this morning about some teams being slowed by the lack of testing results. Has that been a concern for you, or is that anything that you've seen from the Rockies side of things?
You know, Kevin, I just heard that this morning. Like I said, I just became aware of that just actually within the last hour. As far as it relates to us, everything with us has been going pretty well. I mean, we're getting used to the system. Our players, our coaches, everybody who needs to get tested, we're going through it. And for us, it's been relatively seamless. So, I can't speak on behalf of what's going on across baseball, but as far as us, it's been going pretty well.
And just a quick follow-up to that, do you feel like that it's kind of become a routine over the last couple of days with the masks, the sanitizing, everything? Is everybody settled into that?
I think so. I think I think, just observing our group, I think everybody's been, pretty adamant about, following the guidelines. We've talked about it as a group. I know the players have talked about it themselves. We're talking about it as a coaching staff, and we're everybody down here, everybody in uniform, everybody in and around the clubhouse, everybody who's on the field, including the grounds crew, have been really good about, following the protocols and following, all the guidelines and suggestions. So it's been cool. So as far as adapting, yes, I think, players and coaches, we're adjusting. And it's becoming part of our routine, what's been happening the last 3 or 4 days, and even prior to that, the number of tests we had to take. So, yes, to your question, I'm sorry.
Kyle Newman of the Denver Post.
Hey, buddy. So I'm sure you've been seeing kind of the chatter about changing team names, Redskins, Cleveland Indians, et cetera, and Terry Francona saying he's in favor of changing the Indians' name. What are your thoughts on that, especially in regards to baseball and the Cleveland Indians? Do you think that name should be changed?
Well, I think it's worth a discussion for sure. I think that the people, in the know as far as the Indians organization, the people who are part of the movement to get it changed. I think that, those discussions and those roundtables should be discussed for sure.
Thanks, buddy.
Nick Groke, Athletic.
Hey, buddy. Obviously this was going to be a huge undertaking to even get training camp through. And I think we're seeing that now with some of the testing problems. I know that you're generally a hopeful person, but also realistic. Are you having to kind of compartmentalize the difficulties of even getting to a season at this point, and separating the baseball from that? Is it creeping into you at all that how difficult it's going to be to even get to a season?
Yeah. I'm aware of what's going on, in the game. But to be honest with you, I think, my focus, is on our team and what we need to do. There's so much that I have to do, the coaches have to do, we have to do in an organization to focus on our job, to get our team ready to play in 2.5 weeks, that I try not to think about, what's going on, even though, it is prevalent and you hear about it. But I don't think you can spread yourself too thin, when you're trying to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Can you just, I don't want to make you guess or be specific, but have you allowed the idea that we might not make it to opening day?
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you think about it, but like, again, I quickly get that out of my mind because we have so much to do here to get ready. I mean, our days are filled, from the time we get to the ballpark here early in the morning until, roughly 5 or 6 o'clock to prepare our players and prepare our organization to be ready to play. So, I try not to let that consume me. There's enough to consume us here with the preparation and the work that we have to do.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Mark Kisla, the Denver Post.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good morning, Mark.
I got two questions for you. First of all, we talked to Kyle Freeland yesterday, and he was saying that, he's eager and ready and in good shape and thinks he can go 5 innings. So in this unique situation, how much do you have to gear back your pitchers with their expectations of how deep they can go into games, and to what extent do you say, go for it, man?
Yeah. Well, you're right. I think, there is an energy that's being displayed on the field right now with position players and pitchers. These guys are fresh, right? They haven't, they were fresh in February and March. They felt good. And then there was this extended break that, they just had to, maintain a level of being in shape to get to where we are now. So, everybody's feeling good. Their legs are good. Their arms are good. And we're approaching, each and every day as a ramp up. So, I love it that Kyle has that mindset. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I see it, I've seen it these last 3 days when we've officially started, and I saw it prior to that, when he was here with a number of other pitchers who are in Denver. But we're going to have to just continue to monitor these guys and watch them each and every day as they progress. Kyle threw yesterday, threw 30 plus pitches to Kemp and McMahon and Tapia and Tony, I believe. He's going to throw on Wednesday. We're going to simulate 2 innings on Wednesday with Kyle and Herman and Antonio to build them up. And we'll see where we are in 2 weeks. But the progression is set with our schedule. It's always subject to change, but we hope that they can get to a pitch count. To answer your first question, to get to a pitch count where they might be able to throw pitches in the 5th inning. But again, guys are fresh. Their legs are good. They haven't played, and hopefully, we as a coaching staff, we're trying to get them in shape without trying to do too much too early, because we know that there's a factor there of getting these guys ready, and we also know that they're just chomping at the bit to do everything they can because they see the calendar, they see the potential schedule of a start date, and they want to do everything they can to be ready. But we have to temper that a little bit.
Okay, the follow-up is completely different. If I looked at my old school day timer correctly, you had a birthday last week, and if that's the case, happy birthday. And I believe you are now the same age I am. So real quick, to what extent did you have to go through in your head to decide this was all worth it for you, given the concerns about COVID?
I thought about it, but knock on wood, my overall general health is pretty good. I'm fortunate in that regard. I'm also fortunate that I have a intensive care ICU nurse by my side, who's has a good medical background. Even though her specialty is pediatrics, she does know a lot about the body, and she feels pretty good about my well-being moving forward. again, it comes down to, what I do every day as far as protecting, not only myself, but, everybody around me, and now everybody back here in the locker room. So I'll say it again, the mask wearing, the distancing, the washing your hands, the three main things that I hear every day on, on television or through print or the computer, whatever that is. I'm trying to adhere to those. So, and I'm trying to be as careful as I can. But I think it starts with, talking to, our doctors who've, watched me now for the last 3 years. That, again, my overall general health is pretty good as far as, being able to, if I do get sick, I can fight it off.
Pediatrics background probably has helped her dealing with you, I would think.
The what?
The pediatrics background has probably helped her dealing with you, I would think.
Well, over the years it's helped, but it's helped others more than me. She's been she's been a great resource for, a lot of the teams that I've been on as far as, their children. And she has a great network of doctors that she relies on too to help troubleshoot, people that we know and people that we're close to, or people who have questions. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thomas Harding.
Hey there, buddy. Yeah, pediatrics helps with all of us. I think we're all kids at heart. But just wanted to hit you with some quick questions just to run down a quick list here. Okay. First of all, the guys that were not here yesterday, any of them in now? Any of them in and ready to perform? Or is there a timetable as far as testing and all to get them on the field?
Yeah, I think everybody's in Denver. There's some guys that are finishing up some of the testing. And I believe and I hope that they'll be on the field tomorrow. So I think that is in order, which will be a good thing. Everybody else is, obviously been on the field. Chuck is the one who's, not in Colorado. He's back in his native state of Georgia. But hopefully, that resolves itself in time as well. But everybody else is in Denver. Everybody was here yesterday, at the ballpark, with the exception, to your point, with a couple guys in there just finishing up some things that they had to finish up as far as the testing. And they should be, like I said, should be ready to go tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay, so Chuck is in Georgia. Is there kind of a schedule for getting him here to Denver yet? Or is that
no schedule. I think he just has to, again, there's some testing protocols that he has to, continue to adhere to before he gets out this way.
Okay, and I hate to belabor that point, but did he test positive in Georgia, or did he have to go there to quarantine?
Thomas, I don't know.
Okay, all right. Let's get to a couple other things. David Dahl, I know that you've looked at him as a leadoff type hitter. Things can be adjusted a bit with the with the DH now and different ways to get guys into the lineup. But do you anticipate putting him at the top of your order daily, or do you feel like even that spot is as important as it is, that can float a bit during a 60-game schedule?
Well, it can fluctuate, but I'd like to think that David would be a great candidate to lead off. He brings a lot to the table, leading off. Power right off the bat is dangerous. The speed component at the top of the lineup is helpful. He can score on a double on, those guys hitting behind him. The base stealing threat, I think, is a little stress on the pitcher-catcher combination. So there's a lot of advantages for him leading off. But again, it's fluid. When you say daily, for me, that means every day. I'd like to think maybe that could happen, but at times our best lineup might be him not leading off.
And with him, with the lack of a spleen there, do you actually set a few more governors on his activity and the people that are around him just to make sure that he is all safe?
I think all of us are aware of those guys on our team who might have, some underlying conditions. But again, I think those guys are aware of their conditions, so they themselves do a great job of protecting themselves through these times. But as coaches and players and those around us downstairs here in the locker room, we're aware of those fellows who, who have some conditions that we got to be aware of.
Also, just kind of along that vein, do you guys set? Obviously, the experts have given you the rules and the best practices, but do you also set things where maybe even internally there is a schedule of incentives and even punishments for not adhering to the activities, where fines or anything like that, or maybe even something like a star on your head if you do something exceptionally well? How do you guys incentivize it, positively or negatively?
Thomas, that's inside information, but as far as I know, we've talked about these things, but as any sort of incentive-based or punitive for doing something that down here we don't see fit, we will act upon it both ways, right? I mean, because we're observing each other, and that's the thing that's been so good about the last couple of days. I've heard guys say to each other, "Hey, get your mask on," or some other things. But as far as to the initial question, probably no.
Thank you very much, buddy.
You're welcome, Thomas.
Kyle Newman, circle back to you.
Hey, bud, I know there's a lot of young position players you're going to be relying on this year, but with Desmond not playing, I mean, does that really, I know you guys got Matt Kemp potentially as an option, but does that really open up more opportunities for Raimel Tapia and Sam Hilliard? And with those two guys, how are you looking for them to take another leap this year in the sprint of the 60-game season?
Well, we're always looking for players to improve. I think those two fellows are poised to do some good things, right? I think especially with Tapia, he's had enough time in and around the big leagues to know what this this big league competition's all about, and how he needs to play his game to be a contributor. I think that and he's ready for that. I think he's ready for production. I think his expectation is that as well, as is ours for him. I think Sam coming up last year and having some really bright moments, right? Had some really big swings that, built his confidence. Again, I think there's still a little bit left for him to learn at this level, but, he is eager. He's a great listener. He's a tremendous worker. He's got all the right attributes to be a really good player, mentally and physically. So, again, because of some of the things we saw last year, we have, expectations for him to be a really good big leaguer. And whether that shows up this year or not, we hope it does. But he's going to get, an opportunity to help us win. So, those two guys, will, along with Kemp, along with David, along with Charlie. And if you throw in Hampson and Owings, into the outfield mix, depending on, what a starting pitcher is that night or a day off, or, if a guy's banged up. I mean, all those guys, we'll need them all really to play well. I think, the success of a team is, a bunch of guys playing well. We've talked about that for a couple of years now that I've been here. I mean, you need 6-7 guys swinging the bat well to have a good offense. You need your pitchers being consistent, and those two guys you mentioned are part of our offensive group that have to perform.
In terms of Hilliard, with a growth in plate discipline and cutting down on those strikeouts, is that one of the the top things that you're looking for from him this year?
Yeah, we'd like that to happen with all our guys. That's something we talked about in spring training. I think, we made that public a little bit about, some of the things we're working on as a group, about our chase rate, cutting our strikeouts down and just improving our plate discipline as a group. In spring training, the spring training one, we were sort of tracking that, and we were talking about it as a group almost daily. With Sam, there was, a little bit of a strikeout there in spring training one, but, again, that's, we're talking February games and early March games where, guys hadn't quite gotten into the swing of things, but, that's something that, moving forward for him and his career, he's going to focus on that.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good day, and we'll be in touch on later calls.
Okay. Thanks, guys.